down here. Now, if we go over to the link, this is where we're going to work a lot today because we're in the pipelines and data flows area. So under the link data, you're going to see this is my Azure Blob Store. So I'm connected into my external data here. This container is not within my workspace. This data lake store, the ADLS Gen 2, this is within my my workspace. So I have my container called Synapse, and I'm able to get to all of my data here. It's essentially the ability to explore and work with data is built into my workspace. So here I can explore my data, and I can work with my folders and my files there. We're going to work with taxi data today. So we're probably primarily going to work within these taxi data folders. But that's all here under data and linked within the workspace. And again, this is the ADLS Gen 2 is part of my Synapse workspace. And then this Azure Blob Store is external. So we're going to use the copy activity within the pipeline to bring this data into Synapse. Now, under integration datasets, these are datasets from ADF, and these are used throughout the Synapse ecosystem to define your data. So let me step back for 1 second because I want to make sure that this is clear. So back in Manage, the integration runtime defines the environment for your pipelines and your data flows. And this is in Azure. You can have a self-hosted integration runtime. If I click on New, I can go and create a self-hosted integration runtime that will allow me to connect to my on-prem sources. I'm using Azure Integration Runtime because although I'm connecting to external data, that external data is only external to my workspace. But you also see in here link services. These link services define the credentials for you to connect to your data. So that's how you will define that, is through link services. When you make a new link service, you will see the different types of link services and connectors that we have that you may be familiar with this from Data Factory. This is present here throughout Synapse as well. And you can use these. I think we have a little bit less than 100 of these available out of the box. And you can use these to define the credential for your link service. When you do that, now you can make a data set from that. Now you can define the shape of that data, what that data looks like coming from that source or that destination. And so those are integration data sets. We just have integration specified here because we are using these for integration. And so these data sets define that. Let me see if I have one open here already. I don't, but let's go ahead and take a look at one of these. Let's take a look at the taxi data data set. So if you haven't seen data sets before, this is where you define some of the information, such as, in this case, this is a delimited text data set. So I need to define the delimiters, the row delimiters. I need to define whether or not this has a first row as a header. And then I'll have the schema over here. I can define the file path, and I can preview the data. So this is essentially looking at what the data is going to look like in the shape of that data. So what I can do is let me actually go through, let's pull some of that external data from the blob store and we'll put it into my ADLS Gen 2. Okay, so let's go back into the folder and let's put the data. I think we'll probably go under taxi data or taxi data 2, and that'll be fine. So I have this pipeline over here. Okay, so we're going to start with a pipeline. This pipeline just has a single copy data activity on it. Now, many different ways that you can get started here by making a pipeline that does something like copy. There are, let's go into the integrate section. Perhaps the easiest way to do this is to start with go to the plus and go to the copy data tool. The copy data tool will provide you with a wizard-like environment where you can go through and you can say that I want to build a copy task. And you'll be able to say that I want to pull this from external sources. In this case, it's going to be pulling data from the blob store. And then you'll be able to go through and you'll go through next, and you can create your copy activity this way. Or you can go and build a new pipeline. So if you click on new plus new pipeline, now you're in a blank brand new canvas for building pipelines. So pipelines, if you haven't seen these before from Data Factory or from Synapse Analytics workspaces, pipelines are your data workflow pieces. And so what you can do is you can orchestrate what you do with your data here in the pipeline. So you see a toolbox over here with a bunch of different activities that you can use to connect to external services within Azure. To copy your data, this is going to, you'll find that under Move and Transform. We're going to work primarily with copy and with data flows today. Under here are some of these Synapse built-in things like the notebooks and Spark jobs. And then you see many other sort of things that you can do within pipelines. So one of the interesting things to look at when you're working with pipelines is under the general and also under the iterations areas. And this is where you're going to build some of the